Francisco Emiliano, immediately former president of the ISPRM. It's a great honor for us to be here, and thank you so much. And of course, in the board of chairman, there is also Professor Zeki Karagüle, a former president of the IMSH. So we are here mostly delighted to have both leaderships of the both international societies to which belongs our Unitarian specialty. So I am hurried to give the word to Professor Francesca Giuliano. So she will give us the presentation. Thank you.
Really mentioned. And the topic of my presentation today is sarcopenia, which is a condition of growing relevance in both clinical and public health contexts. I will start my presentation with the understanding of the definition of sarcopenia that has been evolving during the past years. And then we will explore together the global burden of sarcopenia in ways even more important today to know how to treat it and prevent it. And of course, we will focus on the critical role of rehabilitation and SPRM specialists. This is a timeline of illustrating all the key events that contributed to the recognition of sarcopenia. And we must go back almost 100 years ago in 1931 when Critchley first observed that aging is accompanied by changing in the muscle mass. We have to wait about 50 years when Dr. Rosenberg, for the first time during the meeting in New Mexico, actually used and proposed the term sarcopenia to describe the age loss of muscle mass. In the late 90s, the reduction in muscle mass was actually associated with the progressive loss in muscle strength. And this is the first time that actually a structural condition has been associated with a functional condition, so muscle loss with muscle strength. Another key turning point is 2010, when actually there was the establishment of the European Working Group on Sarcopenia in Older People, followed by similar initiatives in the America and in Asia. And a milestone was reached when sarcopenia received a dedicated ICD code, being formally recognized as a clinical disease. Another important event was in 2022 when the GLIS initiative started, with the aim to harmonize the global definitions, screening and treatment approaches on sarcopenia. In summary, it's overly a century of history. So the European working groups in a first moment actually started their definition focusing on the presence of low muscle mass, along with low muscle strength and low physical performance. 8 years later, actually, the group placed at the center of the definition the low muscle strength. As the first important indicator of sarcopenia, when there is low muscle strength, according to the group, sarcopenia is to consider as probable. Low muscle mass is also present. The diagnosis becomes confirmed, and when physical performance is impaired, sarcopenia is classified already as severe. So physical performance is something that it's not necessary, but is a consequence of having low muscle mass, strength, and mass. As a representative of the International Society of Physical Rehabilitation Medicine, I cannot needs to inform you that within ISPRM we have a nice ARCO PRM group, which is a special interest group focusing its attention on sarcopenia. And they have been working on a diagnostic algorithm that includes an ultrasound assessment of the muscle to make the diagnosis of sarcopenia. And they called their algorithm a STAR because it evaluates the STAR system with the ultrasound evaluates the ratio between muscle to fat. The Global Leadership Initiative in Sarcopenia is the first really worldwide effort to try to harmonize the definition of sarcopenia and to make sure that there will be a unified definition that can be adopted all over the world. Several international organizations are part of this initiative, as well as the World Health Organization has been involved in the conversation about the definition of sarcopenia. A few months ago, this is really this year publication, the GLEAS published the first global conceptual definition of sarcopenia. They had 2 health rounds involving 100 experts worldwide and agreed that the components of sarcopenia are muscle mass and muscle strength, as it was already defined by the European Working Group. But the third component is a muscle-specific strength that is given by the ratio between muscle strength and muscle size. Moreover, they highlighted the general aspects of sarcopenia and the outcomes that we should take care when we do interventions on a patient with sarcopenia. The main difference from the previous definitions is the introduction of this muscle-specific strength. And the other important difference is that the physical performance is considered as an outcome more than a component of sarcopenia. A little bit more similar to what the European Working Group done in 2018. This table summarizes actually the different tools that can be used to assess the outcomes, and the main outcomes identified are physical performance and mobility, IADL, quality of life for related fractures, hospitalized population, nursing home admissions, and mortality. With also the minimum clinical important differences that can be used to actually assess these different outcomes. And this is a sort of evidence map with the different level of evidence that we have about coming from systematic previous meta-analysis and relevant cohort studies in the field of sarcopenia. And as you can see, the dark blue shows you that there are high-level evidence that sarcopenia is associated with reduced quality of life, higher risk of falls and fractures, and higher risk of mortality. You will see that this evidence is missing something. You can see that there is not a strong association, for example, with the reduced basic and instrumental activities of daily living. And this is mostly due that so far there is no, that by the time this table was constructed, the studies were following different definitions of sarcopenia. And you can see this clear in this slide about epidemiology, because using the different definition of sarcopenia with different cutoffs, we have a completely different data about the epidemiology of sarcopenia, varying very largely. If you think that in 2050, we will have 1 in 5 people that will be over 60 years old. You have also to think that the majority of these people will be living in low and middle income countries. And if you think that sarcopenia affects about the 10% of individuals over 60 years old, sarcopenia is something that will be very much impactful, because by 2050, we should have more than 215 million people over 60 years old living with sarcopenia. As I said at the beginning, a very important key point in the importance that we are giving to sarcopenia was the introduction of the ICD term code for sarcopenia, because it was the first time that sarcopenia was acknowledged by a formal medical condition. And being acknowledged as a formal medical condition, we actually also registered data about how many people have sarcopenia. And this is also an important drive, for example, for pharmaceutical companies to start studying drugs that could be actually useful for treating patients with sarcopenia. As PRM physicians, we know that there is no ICD without ICF, and that what's matters most for the patient is its functioning profile. So our patient care doesn't really care about the name of his health condition, but mostly care about what he or she is able or not able to do in his life. And you perfectly know what is rehabilitation. I'd like to stress once again that rehabilitation is the health strategy that targets functioning. You know that in 2023, it was for the first time approved by the World Health Assembly a resolution on rehabilitation. The name of the resolution is Strengthening Rehabilitation in Health Systems, and rehabilitation has been recognized as the key health strategy to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal number 3, which is to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. Why rehabilitation plays such a crucial role in the managing of sarcopenia? Because it helps preventing further muscle deterioration and the development of any secondary condition like falls and fractures that we can know, we do know it's frequently associated to death. And for individuals already experiencing complications such as fall-related injuries, rehabilitation, is even more essential. This intervention focuses not only on muscle function, but address also the consequences of sarcopenia, such as the reduced physical activity and increased risk of falls. The WHO has recently launched a package of interventions for rehabilitation, which includes also 6 musculoskeletal conditions that majorly impacts the life of our patients, and among them there is sarcopenia. And interventions that have been targeted by these packages of interventions for rehabilitation are nutrition, motor functions and mobility, exercise and fitness, activities of daily living, lifestyle modification, and self-management. Research in sarcopenia is growing steadily. This is an output of the PubMed number of papers on sarcopenia. And you can see that there are still a lot of challenges. Some of them will be overcome in the next years thanks to the GLIS initiative of harmonizing the definition. One of the problems is this diagnostic heterogeneity. Another one is the lack of longitudinal studies following the patients for mid to long periods. Another problem is the complexity of the interaction between muscle mass, strength, and physical performance. The scarcity of systematic reviews, the great geographic disparities. You have to think the majority of the studies available are coming from high-income countries, and we have almost nothing from low and middle-income countries. And you have to consider that this problem will be very important for those populations in the next future, and the contextual variability. In general, the future of research poses a lot of troubles now with the new Trump administration, because you have to consider that, for example, among the world that are banned from receiving grants, there is the word women. So, for example, we cannot in the United States, they cannot ask for a grant if they are targeting specific population, like checking differences between women and men. And I would like to thank you for your attention. This is a picture of my centenarian grandmother interacting with my daughter, who was completely sarcopenic, I have to say. And it's accompanied by the words of William Shakespeare, who is one of my favorite authors ever, who described a sarcopenic patient, referring to him as the stockings of an older man, much too large for his now much smaller leg. As the first president of the ISPRM, I like to meet all of you in Morocco in November this year. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you so much, dear Professor Giuliano. Wonderful presentation as always. Are there questions in the assistance? It was extremely comprehensive and very insightful. Maybe in the pause after, we shall kindly ask you how could we join this wonderful initiative on sarcopenia? Because a distinguished fellow here, very recently promoted associate professor, and myself, we are both PRM and geriatrics. So sarcopenia is, so we are very interested. Thank you very much. And now I give to my fellow.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I will introduce now Professor Zeki Caragle, a very good friend of Romania. So many times, so many congresses together here in Romania. I will invite him as president of the hydrogen sulfide group. So, dear President, please, you have the floor for the presentation, for the next presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning to presidents, and good morning to participants. It is my great pleasure this morning to address you on the topic, a balneological topic, which is a part of this Congress, on specific balneological pathogen, H2S, or we used to say sulfurous waters and tellurides. This is a new picture. I don't say old, but it goes back to 2010, when I first time visited Romania, and after such a meetings, I think the foundation of Romanian Balneology Association followed this. Yeah, I think you are familiar with some of the faces in this picture. I am most familiar with Professor Munteanu, and I see that he didn't change too much because of the balneological activity, probably. Well, I Actually, in this session, we are having an educational mission coming from the H2S Global Initiative, which was founded last September in Banja Koviljača in Serbia. As several aims of this initiative includes also educational programs, and I would like to thank again sincerely to the organizers to be included in this specific meeting. Well, I will introduce you a new concept of balneological trees. This is an analogy, in fact, which have never been used before. And we have on one side waters and the other side mud. And when we talk about different subjects like water and mud, it may seem at the first sight some problematic to have such an analogy. But where it comes from? First of all, sulfurous waters and muds are naturally found together in nature. But in some cases, they are manufactured or maturated or prepared, combining their composition. And in fact, they are mostly used together in combination in many sulfur styles. You know, balneotherapy is the use of mineral waters for bathing. Paleotherapy or paleoidotherapy is the use of medical muds for the treatment. And in combination, we have balneo-paleotherapy concept. And this is the case in several health resorts all around the world, including Europe, including Romania, Serbia, and Turkey. Here you see two different types of application of the mud therapy. On the left side, a whole body wrap, which is a traditional way of application mud therapy in Banja Koviljača, Serbia. And on the right side, we have the application in Tekirdağ, Romania, in a tub, a kind of mixture of local application, topical application, and bathing. And during these treatment modalities, mud and water act supporting each other. In a way, water plays a role for medium, having the effective components, transporting the components to the required places of our body. And mud acts as a matrix. In fact, these two functions can be changed. Water can act as a matrix, and mud can act as a vacuum. That's why, in fact, sometimes we call mud as a semi-solid. So depending on the type of the mud, the water ingredients of the mud depends on the type. Sometimes up to 80%, 90% of mud is made of water itself, in fact. So there is a rationale behind this combined applications, and it is believed that the total effect of these two applications is being enhanced, becoming more stronger. And also the effective components of these applications, namely H2S, as we say, hydrogen sulfide. In fact, it is a molecule, it's a gas dissolved in the water and dissolved in the water part of peroid. And in fact, it is not only H2S, also when it stays, depending on the temperature and the pH of the medium, it dissolves into the B-sulfide and sulfide ions. This form of different type of sulfur components, sulfur molecules. It is like this, H2S is a predominating component of the sulfurous waters or peroids below pH 6 values. So when the medium is acidic, H2S is predominating. And between 6 to 9 pH degrees, then comes the bisulfide, and in alkali conditions, in higher pH levels, it is only sulfide. And here I would like to underline that the bioactive component of sulfurous waters and peroids is hydrogen sulfide. And you are, of course, familiar with the concept of gasotransmitter, a kind of gasotransmitters in our bodies, H2S, plays many roles in nearly all cells of our body endogenously produce H2S, and it works in connection and in cooperation with the other two gasotransmitters, namely nitric oxide and carbon monoxide. And there is also an interesting connection between H2S and SO4. These are the sulfur components of the thermal mineral waters we use in balneology. And mostly when we talk about sulfur water or sulfur peroid, sometimes we mean H2S and sometimes we mean SO4. So what is the interrelation between these two components? Actually, H2S in the nature, in some thermal mineral water sources, is being produced by the microorganisms, so-called sulfide reducing microbiota. But the vice versa is also true. When H2S exposed to the air, to the oxygen, it is converted into SO4 sulfate back. And of course, without mentioning the smell of H2S, is not possible to talk about H2S in balneology. This is a so-called a kind of rotten egg smell, a distinct smell that at the first sight it irritates you. You became like, oh, it's a bad smell. Actually, the threshold to feel this smell is very low. in very low concentrations, you still can feel this smell. But thanks God that if you continue to expose, you became adapted to the smell. And you don't feel it anymore. And this H2S, on the other side, how we may say, can convert into the very core element of itself, that is sulfur, or a better saying, element of sulfur. And in water, H2S, or in peroid, forms elemental sulfur, and later this elemental sulfur becomes H2S. So there is a continuing changing like this. To make it better understand that, especially when the biological applications, H2S is very easily actively penetrated through the skin, and in epidermis, in between the skin layers, it turned into the elemental sulfur. It does not exist as a H2S, but it stays as sulfur element itself. And when your skin is exposed to the air, again it turned into the H2S. This is why after balneological applications, the patients, as we may say, continue to smell the H2S, because this chemical reaction happens continuously in our skin after the balneological bath therapy, mud applications. And in that case, the effect of the application of biological application of sulfurous waters and muds continues in a longer duration. Here you see the family of sulfur. When we talk about sulfur, these are the main sulfur chemical explanations. So we should indicate which sulfur we are talking about. If we talk generally about sulfur water or sulfur-rich mud, sulfurous mud, and so on, we should indicate which sulfur we are talking about. And let me remind you again that it is H2S, hydrogen sulfide, a chemical compound of sulfur as a gas is the responsible element of sulfurous application, the effects and the effectiveness of sulfurous applications. And these sulfur compounds with -2 valence are found in waters, and then sulfate are found also in waters. And sulfate and hydrogen sulfate are always changing to each other. And then now today we know better that not only sulfate and sulfate, also elemental sulfur plays a role in the effects observed, different type of effects of sulfur application. There is a general accepted definition of sulfur water, especially in Europe, when a water has a H2S content more than 1 milligram per liter, it is called sulfurous water. In Japan and Russia, they have a higher level, but regarding the sulfurous phenolics, we don't have such a definition of classification, which is internationally accepted. So this is still missing. But when we discuss these matters, maybe in future, we should define a sulfurous mud depending on the elemental sulfur level of the mud. Because in any case, as a water part, the H2S will be responsible. But in the solid part, H2S does not exist. In solid parts, mostly existing sulfur is elemental sulfur. Here you see the two different interactions between sulfurous waters and sulfurous phenolics. On the right side, Banja Koviljača, the canals where local natural sulfur water are mixed with the local soil or clay in Banja Koviljača. And the other is in Argentina, Copahue. These are the not the natural but man-made pools where volcanic sulfur water is mixed with the local volcanic mud. And after the maturation period, we have a mixture of prepared sulfurous water and mud. So sulfur waters sometimes act as a maturation medium or agents of such balneological remedies. Not going into too much details, but we have, after all this information, to indicate that we have natural muds and we have manufactured prepared muds depending on the tradition, depending on the local availability, depending on the local sulfurous water type. And here the examples of such phenolics, Tekirgöl, Romania, which is very specific mud, a kind of so-called subtropinic mud, which forms under anaerobic conditions in the bottom, in the depth of salt lake of Tekirgöl. I don't know if you call it in Romanian dark mud or black mud. And how do you say it in Romanian dark mud? Negro, black, yeah. Okay. And another example from Serbia. This time we have so-called mineral muds, and Copahue in Argentina, a volcanic type of. These are, I have also a personal experience in these three muds. I have some pictures. Here you see the preparation before the application of the Serbia. And this, you see the dark mud of Tekirgöl and volcanic mud of Copahue, Argentina. This color comes from humic acid, which is an organic compound of subtropinic muds like Tekirgöl. Well, I am just going to finish soon. About the evidence, is there scientific evidence that support the idea of combination use of the sulfur mud and water has any effect, any therapeutic effect. This is one of the very recently, last month, published a meta-analysis on the balneotherapy and balneotherapy for rheumatic diseases in Europe. And they have extensive search in this field, all published and published in English language studies included. They have they extracted many results from this meta-analysis and systematic review that we may consider in the future research in this area. And I would strongly suggest to read this meta-analysis. But what I took from this meta-analysis is they found that analyzing all the studies in this review, mud plus water, balneo plus pelotherapy works better than they applied in combination. And this is in one parameter, especially pain reduction is important in all the diseases. And this combination is more effective, significantly more effective than the balneotherapy alone or mud therapy alone. So, in fact, there is some supporting evidence this type of combination, balneological treatment, but not only rheumatological diseases. The second indication of such application is dermatological conditions, even though we have a lesser extent of evidence about that. But rheumatological conditions and dermatological conditions are the main indications of such cases. So, to conclude, traditionally, in fact, it is called mud-bath therapy, especially in the terminology of Italy. In Italy, it is very rich tradition, and there are many studies. So again, combining balneotherapy with pellucid therapy, and when you do this with sulfurous twins, biological twins, muds and waters, is an effective way of managing rheumatological and dermatological diseases. Thank you very much for your attention.
Let me thank you very much, Professor, for your very comprehensive and instructive presentation. And now I introduce the presentation of the work, Biomedical Importance of Hydrogen Sulfide for Balneology Mechanisms and Clinical Significance. Constantin Montano, Nel Poteteu, Cristina Popescu, Diana Nicoleta Montano, General Nurse.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for this morning attention to these presentations. I will start to speak a little bit more about the hydrogen sulfide, just very well presented by Professor Zeki Karagiule. I will go fast in my presentation to be short. As relevant financial disclosure, I have to say that last year we finished a project financed by the Ministry of Research and Innovation and the Development from Romania regarding the BioHIS project using hyperspectral imaging to see how the oxygenation of the tissues are changed after using different kind of therapeutic natural factors as mud and waters with hydrogen sulfide. This is the presentation of the project, so all my presentations are connected with this project. The medical relevance of therapeutic gases can range from boils to strokes, and we have some articles also related to stroke, for example. Medical gases such as oxygen, hydrogen, helium, and xenon have recently come under increased exploration for their potential, for their therapeutic potential. Here is presented such a synthetic article, about 200 articles which were synthesized in this systematic review. So as gases, gasotransmitters, hydrogen sulfide belongs to the family together with nitric oxide, with hydrogen peroxide and carbon monoxide together make this family of gasotransmitters, which are very well now, which have a high interest now in science. About more than 200 papers, I think, are published each month. Here are some connections between these molecules, and we see that the concentration at which hydrogen sulfides acts is very, very low, between 5 to 35 micrometers, not molars, but micrometers. So it's a very, very low concentration. Otherwise, hydrogen sulfide is known as a poison. Hydrogen sulfide has so many cellular activities because can act on proteins, can modify proteins by persulfidation, and this modification is implied in the signaling activity of the hydrogen sulfide. So hydrogen sulfide has antioxidant capacity, also has connection with the energetic metabolism in the cell, connected with mitochondria, also autophagic and anti-apoptotic activities, connection with the energy metabolism, and also can be combined, can have cross activities or cross talkings with other gasotransmitters. At the level of the nervous system, also there are many other processes, physiological processes, which are influenced by this gaseous molecule because it's acting at the cellular level. So regarding antioxidative capacity, anti-inflammatory capacity, also can modulate the plasticity of the synaptic activity. So we see the involvement of these gasotransmitters to many levels at the physiological level, also in the nervous system. And there are many articles related to this subject. We started our activity also making a systematic literature review regarding the activities of the hydrogen sulfide. Hydrogen sulfide, on the one side, is an endogenous gas signal, is produced by our cells through specific enzymes, and as Professor Zeki Karagöl just explained, also is found in natural therapeutic resources, so can also be considered an exogenous source of hydrogen sulfide. Related to the activities in our cells here, for example, is one of our published articles related to the connections of the hydrogen sulfide in diabetes, and we see that hydrogen sulfide is acting on the receptor for insulin, also on the transcription factors and in the energetical metabolism related to the activity of the mitochondria. Here are some of the explained mechanisms of the hydrogen sulfide inside the cell. In the same article, in the same systematic literature review article, we see the many physiological properties of the hydrogen sulfide, which are listed in the slide. Also with some pathophysiological properties and connections, and all these properties are referenced in the literature regarding the hydrogen sulfide activities in the cell. Related to the stroke I mentioned before, there are also some articles which are mentioning the hydrogen sulfide along with other gasotransmitter, other cases which are considered non-pharmacological interventions for stroke. Related to Alzheimer's disease, there are also many articles which are involving the hydrogen sulfide in the clearance, for example, of the amyloid plaque in the amyloid proteins. And we see that, I don't have that, okay, because hydrogen sulfide can make the dilation of vessels, of blood vessels, also is contributing to the clearance of the amyloid proteins, the precursors of amyloid plaques. So in this way, the connection between the hydrogen sulfide and the development of the Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease also are very strong, explained in many articles. Here also the hydrogen sulfide is connected, like I mentioned before, with the diabetes. Also in the vessels, there are strong connections related to the activities of the hydrogen sulfide. But to be mentioned that hydrogen sulfide acting on the transcription factors also can modulate the epigenetics of the cells, and there are different mechanisms which are involved in the epigenetics of the hydrogen sulfide, DNA methylation, and so on. And all of these activities in the cell are connected with the activity of the transcription factors. Related to the activities of the hydrogen sulfide, the endothelial level, we see again a schematic explanation of the activities of the hydrogen sulfide connected with the metabolism of the cell, acting on the mitochondria, on the transcription factors, and connection with all the other gasotransmitters in the cell. Because of these activities at the cellular level, hydrogen sulfide is involved to many organs in our body, and there are also many articles which are contributing to explaining the activities of hydrogen sulfide in so many diseases. And this is why I mentioned before, more than 200 articles, 300 articles are published each month related on this subject. Related to the skin, to the dermatological problems, Professor Zeki just explained how the hydrogen sulfide can pass this barrier, the cutaneous barrier of our body, and exerting so many activities in the biological conditions after bath and mud treatment in sanatoriums and other biological facilities. Related to the activities of the hydrogen sulfide at the endothelial level, because as I just mentioned that the hydrogen sulfide is acting as a vasodilator. In one of our just published few months ago articles, we found 10 routes, 10 pathways which are connected with hydrogen sulfide and is producing this vasodilation, and this vasodilation after is connected with many pathological and physiological pathways regarding the hydrogen sulfide. Also, importantly, connected with this vasodilation, hydrogen sulfide is involved in the homeostasis of the oxygen, and also is connected with the atherosclerotic plaque, because can be involved in oxidative stress at this level. So there are articles explaining these activities of hydrogen sulfide and how it is acting in atherosclerosis. Just mentioned before the activities of hydrogen sulfide connected with Alzheimer and Parkinson's disease. The same explanation in another article, now connected with metalloproteinases, which are connected also with the activity of hydrogen sulfide. There are mechanisms which connects the metalloproteinases in these activities of the hydrogen sulfide. I mentioned the neurological diseases. There are strong evidences which are involved the hydrogen sulfide in these pathological conditions. Of course, very important is the level hydrogen sulfide in our organism, because it is a very narrow range of activities, otherwise becomes toxic and provokes dangerous activities in our body. In last articles, we were focused on the connection between microbiota, because there are microorganisms which are producing hydrogen sulfide. So this we can have another source of hydrogen sulfide, and we see how the hydrogen sulfide producing our microbiota can pass different barriers, including the blood-brain barrier, and reach the nervous system, and in this way can also be active at the nervous system. And this axis, microbiota gut-brain axis, is now very strong, has a strong interest, and now many articles are published on this subject. We see how the hydrogen sulfide and many other products produced by microbiota can pass in the blood system, in the circulatory system, and from here can pass also the blood-brain barrier. Not so many, but are evidencing that some molecules can pass also this barrier and reach the nervous system, and from here we have consequences related to the neural activities. I just have here in these articles connections between the activity of the hydrogen sulfide and siblings. Now also we can speak about hydrogen sulfide siblings axis, siblings which are also connected with aging and many other processes. So another strong evidence that hydrogen sulfide is acting on this siblings family. Related to this axis, brain and connected with microbiota, there are also endocrinological connections, because hydrogen sulfide acting at cellular level also influences so many hormones in our body, and the picture is far more complex than I only put in few words in my slide before. Very recent, I think 2 months ago, we published another article related to the Janus phase of oxidative stress and also hydrogen sulfide activity at the nervous system. We see that regarding the oxidative stress in very small quantities of reactive oxygen species, they have also a signaling capacity, but when these levels are very high, the bad activities are put in context. Also, this is also available for the hydrogen sulfide. Also, for hydrogen sulfide in low concentrations, we have good results, and in high concentrations, the bad results, the bad consequences are appearing. Gasotransmitters are very important. They are acting mainly on the circulatory system, and from here, many other organs in our body are influenced by these gasotransmitters. Hydrogen sulfide also, as carbon monoxide and nitric oxide, are influencing, having this dilatory effect on the blood vessels. There are now many biotechnological, let's say, ways to put this hydrogen sulfide in other particles, in other specific particles, and to target this dilatory effect in in our body, and the biotechnological researches are important in this context, as making new vasotransmitter donors engineered to have new solutions, new therapeutic solutions in this way. And few words regarding our last published article, also connected with the plasticity involvement of hydrogen sulfide. Many receptors at the synaptic level are influenced, and from here the long-term and short-term learning processes and the learning and memory are influenced by hydrogen sulfide also. The picture used for this article was also taken as a front picture for the International Journal of Molecular Sciences. Thank you for your attention. I hope that I was short in the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Actually, we are very proud that the editors of the well-known International Journal of Molecular Sciences have chosen for their number in April to put as a hallmark of their issue a schemata done by our colleague and colleagues.
Thank you very much. And now I will ask Alexander Jokic to join us to take the floor and to present the next paper, hydrogen sulfide rich biological resources of Banja Komilaca. I was there, so it is an impressive institution. Please, Vice President of the Hydrogen Sulfide Group, take the floor for your presentation.
Thank you, Konstantin. It's great honor and great pleasure for me to be again in this palace in Bucharest. The first time was during the ISMH Congress in 2016. I'll tell you something about our fellow Professor will mention it in his presentation. As you know, the H2S Global Initiative is founded last September in Serbia, in Banja Komilaca. And on this picture, you will see the founders of the H2S initiative, and above you will see the picture of the King Peter Karađorđević I, Queen Mary, Romanian princess, and his husband, King Alexander I. Our hospital rehabilitation center in Banja Komilaca is operating due to international standards, and we are located on the west part of the Serbia, just on the right bank of River Drina, on the border with Bosnia and Herzegovina. This is the spa complex between Mountain Vučevo and the River Drina, and one of the biggest parks in Serbia. This is our spa complex, and it used to be the Royal Spa. We have two natural healing factors. The first one is mineral water, which is sodium, calcium, hydrocarbonated, sulfide-rich hipotherms, and depend on the analysis, we found from 12 to 21 milligram per liter dissolved hydrogen sulfide and 5 milligrams of pure sulfur. We use the mineral water in the pools, in the baths, and in the local baths. We have two indoor mineral pools for the women and for the men. And this is outdoor pool. Another natural factor is pellet. Pellet found in Banja Komilaca is of mineral origin. It is prepared in special outdoor mud pools. We call it canals, which are filled with clay and mixed with sulfuric and mineral water. Ripening of the mud is done in anaerobic conditions, which takes about 3 years. During that period, the optimal concentration of the dissolvable substances is achieved. Pellet is used for therapeutic purposes in the form of mud wraps. And you can see the color of our mud. We have a long tradition from 1858 is the time that when the first official doctor works in Spa Center. Quality of the thermal mineral waters and evaluates has been confirmed by the first number one biologist in the world, Professor Dr. Zeki Gragule, past president of the ISMH. And on the website of the hospital, you can see these analyses which were done in Istanbul Medical Faculty. We have 167 years of tradition, almost during the year more than 400 employees, for half of them are medical staff, about 500 beds, 100 in children department, and we are using 8,000 kilograms of pellet per day because we have more than 1,500 manual procedures per day. Pellet of Banja Koviljača is of mineral origin and consists of quartz, clay mineral, feldspar, calcium, magnesium, calcite, and zeolite. pH is about 7.9. Water percentage is about 32%. And there is predominance of minute grains and provides good plasticity, skin adhesion, and decrease the water binding capacity. At the end of the maturation process, when the pellet gains certain color and consistency, it is taken out to the canals and then additionally mixed with sulfur water, and its ground is checked for the possible rock remains. Furthermore, it's additionally heated with the use of huge double bottom specialized caldrons. Once pellet reach a certain consistency, it's poured in metal containers and checked for the prescribed temperature or doctor's prescribed from 38 to 42 centigrades, after which is brought to the treatment section where the patient is to be treated. Pellet of Banja Koviljača is prepared by combining natural local mud with sulfur mineral water in anaerobic conditions. You see, water level is always above the clay, and under the water is some kind of anaerobic factory for the our mud. The canals are divided into smaller sections, and every day the mixture of the pellet and water is manually ground, so that more pellet particles come into the contact with the water. The entire process takes about 3 years. The manner of pellet preparation has not changed through its long history since 1858. It is planned that with the application of a specially designed machine, mixing of clay and water. And I mentioned after the extraction from the gamma pellet is transported in cars to the sulfur baths where we are mixing with fluid water. And this is additional mixing and sealing. And after that, special counters with double buttons is heated using steam in order to preserve the favorable heating properties. When the desired temperature and consistency are reached, I mentioned it, pellet put into the special buckets and transported to the patient. And one bucket is about 13 kilograms of mud. Pellet is placed directly onto the treated body part of the patient, after which it is wrapped in the plastic foil and then covered by the blanket. The treatment lasts for 20 minutes. With its favorable physical and chemical characteristics, as well as the manner of its preparation, it is believed that pellet Banja Kovačica has favorable therapeutic effects when applied properly for treating especially rheumatic disease. We treat rheumatic diseases, degenerative diseases of the joint and the spinal column, disc hernia, as well as disc hernia post-operative conditions, osteoporosis, post-traumatic conditions of the upper and lower limbs and spinal columns, slight disease of the central nervous system, lesions of the peripheral nervous system, muscular disease, some gynecological and skin diseases, lymphedema, and obesity. A further improvement of the maturation process of pellet could be expected, and the time required for its maturation could also be shortened. Next, ISMA Congress will be in Banja Kovačica in Serbia, and we are all invited to come to Serbia. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We know the center, so it is wonderful there. So I invite you to go also in Serbia and to see this center. Now I will invite Jasmina Milošević Arsic, also another presentation about hydrogen sulfide rich biological resources from Banja Kovačica, therapeutic potential for children this time.
Chairpersons, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor and pleasure for me to be here today and to have the opportunity to speak before this esteemed audience. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the organizers of this event for the kind invitation to contribute to this session. I would also like to extend my heartfelt thanks to our dear, highly respected and trusted friend Costa for warm welcome and continuous support. Following Dr. Jokic's comprehensive presentation on the balneological resources of our institution, I will avoid repetition and instead focus on exploring their therapeutic potential in the context of pediatric rehabilitation. As we know, water, steam, and mud have been used as a natural healing agents throughout history. The initial application was based on empirical knowledge, but today it is supported by growing scientific understanding. As a pediatric physiatrist, I would like to raise several important questions regarding the use of balneological factors in the context of pediatric rehabilitation. First, do we have sufficient scientific evidence supporting the use of mud and mineral waters in pediatric rehabilitation? Second, how many rehabilitation centers in Europe currently implement these natural agents in pediatric care? Then, in which clinical conditions are balneological factors considered beneficial for children? And finally, in light of recent studies, are the traditional beliefs about effects of this therapy still valid? Then let's start with the first answers. Answer: to the best of our knowledge, there is a limited number of published scientific papers concerning this field in available literature. In our institution, in 2007, we made the small, modest efforts to explore balneological effects through scientific methods. Actually, we aim to research the influence of sulfuric mud on the revascularization and recovery of necrotic bone in children with Leclerc-Perthes disease. And we did identify a positive impact. It was confirmed by clinical and radiographic tracking parameters. However, unfortunately, this study suffered from methodological limitation, primarily because it was not randomized, and also we consider that our control group wasn't quite inadequate. Regarding the balneology in pediatric rehabilitation, I must admit that for a long time, we believe that our center, having celebrated its 36th anniversary this year, had the longest tradition in pediatric rehabilitation using balneological resources. However, discovering Tehidiro in Romania, with its 165-year tradition, inspired us to look across Europe and recognize the broader community of similar institutions. I firmly believe that there are more centers yet to be discovered, and I am sure that some of you help us with that. Before I move on to the third answer, I would like to briefly introduce you to our children department through a short video. I kindly ask you to put this video. Can you put this? Okay. Yes, this is our swimming pool, which was renovated last year. I will present some data, and all of them refer to the year of 2024. In the previous year, 905 treatment, inpatient treatment in our children department. Please, when we speak about MAD application, an average of 35 pellet packs are performed on a daily basis, serving both from in and out patients. And during summer season, the number of pellet packs are even more, to 45 pellet packs, because in this month we have more outpatients. As you can see, we apply mud directly on the skin, then we cover patient with plastic foil, and then we put cotton cloth. The therapy, as you can hear, lasts 20 minutes. Regarding the indication, when we use MAD packs at children rehabilitation, there are a broad range of indications such as orthopedic, neurological, rheumatological disorders, and other. Now I will also highlight the number of patients who receive pellet treatment alongside with other therapy for such condition. When we talk about orthopedic disorders, in the previous year we have 150 patients with such conditions, and the broader range of indications are fractures, then contractures, anomalies, and development disorders of locomotive system. Also, we had about 340 children with spastic form of cerebral palsy, and also we treat peripheral neural lesions, and including brachial plexopathy, about 60 children in previous year. When we talk about rheumatological disorders, we also receive patients with juvenile arthritis. In last year, we had 30 inpatients with such condition. And unlike other conditions where we apply mud at temperature of 38 to 39 degrees, in this condition, we apply mud on temperature of 25 Celsius degrees. Contraindications for pellet packs are the same as in adults and with other physical modalities, including malignancy, febrile state, bleedings, and others. The side effects are rare. Sometimes we observe transient macular rash, and sometimes children reject the therapy due to the unpleasant smell of sulfur. Dr. Jokic highlighted the available balneological resources in our institution. However, when it comes to pediatric rehabilitation, we predominantly use MAD application. For a few years ago, we didn't use mineral water as a bath therapy in children rehabilitation. Even now, its using is rare and limited to the children over the age of 12. This practice is largely based on the empirical concerns that as a sulfuric-rich hypothermal resource, It might exert adverse effects on the respiratory system on children, despite the clear scientific evidence to support such a claim. But interestingly, the mud is removed by reasoning with mineral water. So in some way, we actually use mineral water in treatment of children in our hospital. So further studies are certainly needed to confirm the benefits and safety of sulfuric water of our spa in pediatric care. So the conclusions are that the therapeutic potential of sulfuric mud of biophobia in pediatric treatment derive from well-known interplay, a complex interplay of physical, chemical, biological, and psychological factors along with other acknowledged benefits. Thyroid effects is based on long-lasting vasodilatation, metabolism support, and revascularization, improving local blood and lymph circulation, accelerating regenerative processes, callus formation, and cartilage repair, enhancing elasticity of spastic muscle, and reducing pain and inflammation. In the context of limited data on the use of sulfuric-rich thermal water in children, there is a clear need for well-designed studies to confirm its safety. By establishing a solid scientific framework and methodology, we aim to move beyond tradition and support the development of evidence-based practice in this field. Therefore, I warmly invite your support and engagement in these efforts.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I think are questions in the audience. If not, we move to the next presentation. Thank you very much. Todor Kasokrateva, Bogdan Rousseau, and other colleagues from Bulgaria study of mineral mechanism of action of sulfur-containing mineral waters from Varna, a basin on human metabolism.
Dear President, organizers and participants in this reunion, University Congress of Physical Medicine, Rehabilitation and Bioneoclimatology, I would like to thank you for the invitation to participate in this significant Congress this year. And today I will present you some of our main results of our study of the molecular mechanism of action of sulfur-containing mineral water from Varna Basin on human metabolism. Mineral water in Bulgaria have been used since ancient times. On a relatively small territory of our country, there are above 240 mineral water deposits in Bulgaria. In the southern region has largest resources, but in terms of utilized mineral water resources, Varna Basin, which accounts about 25% from total Bulgaria resources, ranked first. Varna Basin mineral water has low mineral content. It is hyperthermal and primary ions that contain is bicarbonate, chloride, sodium, calcium, magnesium. Due to the presence of hydrogen sulfide above 1 milligram per liter, it is classified as sulfurous. Fluorine contained in it is below 1 milligram per liter, that making it suitable for all ages. Because of that citizens of Varna drink simultaneously mineral water from accessible public fountain, but the effects of this drinking was based only on empirical data. Our goal was to study the effects of sulfur-containing mineral water from Varna Basin on human metabolism. In our study, 51 healthy subjects aged between 40 and 65 years were enrolled, but 50 from these subjects complete the intervention with mineral water consumption for 8 weeks at dosage 20 milligrams per kilogram per day. Venous blood sample and 24-hour urine were collected before and after the intervention. Some biochemical parameters that we analyzed were connected with lipid profile, liver kidney function, and oxidative inflammatory status. Two public fountains were used from our volunteers, named Dom Lados and Aquarium. Physical chemical characteristic of these mineral waters were almost the same. Main differences was pH and hydrogen sulfide, which was higher in the Dom Lados fountain. Here we present some of the main results. Blood chemical markers are shown on the table. All values were with reference rate. Notably, the level of creatinine and high-sensitivity C-reactive protein were decreased after the intervention. Urine parameters are shown on the table. The levels of diuresis were higher after the intervention. Simultaneously decrease in the level of creatinine and constantly decrease in the level of diuresis led us to explore the function of kidney, and we estimated glomerular filtration rate according to Cockcroft equation. And finally, our result was that the glomerular filtration rate of the kidney was improved. To exclude the main reason of this positive effect because of the increased level of diuresis, we selected 28 participants who whose diuresis doesn't change or decrease after the intervention, and the results consistent. Creatinine levels were decreased, and estimated glomerular filtration rate were decreased after the intervention. Because I told you that two public fountain that our volunteer used his small differences in their concentration of sulfurous compound, we stratified volunteers into different groups according to preferred mineral water sources. And the results about diuresis, creatinine, and glomerular filtration rate were changed only in the Dom Lados group. A significantly decrease in diastolic blood pressure and tendency to reduction of systolic blood pressure were found regardless of the mineral water source. Other effect that we established was anti-inflammatory effect of Varna mineral water. As you can see on the figure, the high sensitivity C-reactive proteins were decreased after the intervention in total group and only in Dom Lados group. Intracellular vascular adhesion molecule 1, but gene expression of this molecule were increased after the intervention in total group and only in the group of volunteers who drank mineral water from Dom Lados fountain. Other effect that we analyzed was oxidative status, and some parameters that we analyzed are malondialdehyde, dissolved reactive oxygen metabolites, total thiols, total glutathione, reduced on and oxidized glutathione, and one gene enzyme that involve directly in the synthesis of antioxidant glutathione, and total thiols, total glutathione, and gene expression of this enzyme were increased after the intervention. Negative correlation between the total thiol and dissolved reactive oxygen metabolite were explored after the intervention, but before intervention, I'm sorry, but after the intervention, the negative correlation was lost. Here you can see comparison of the markers of oxidative status and antioxidant protection depending on the preferred mineral water source. A significant increase in the levels of total thiols, regardless of the mineral water source, was established. The gene expression of main regulatory enzyme of glutathione synthesis was increased only in Dom Lados group. One of the physiological roles or effects of hydrogen sulfide is to inhibit the activity of tubular transporters, thereby increase the excretion of sodium and potassium, and after that increases the glomerular filtration rate. Other effects of hydrogen sulfide are antioxidant activity, cytoprotection, and immunomodulatory effects. In conclusion, regular consumption of sulfur-containing mineral water from Varna Basin improves kidney function. Its therapeutic effects are demonstrated by its antioxidant capacity, which increase the total GOs and glutathione levels in the blood, as well as its anti-inflammatory potential, evidenced by reduced high-sensitive C-reactive protein levels. Finally, I would like to thank you for my colleagues. This was one huge project, and the work that we done was teamwork at the Department of Biochemistry, Molecular Medicine, and Nutrigenomics. Thank you for your attention. Drink water, be healthy.
Thank you very much. Now we have come to the end of this international session. I found it, maybe I'm subjective, but extremely instructive and useful. And it's a pledge also for the unitarity of our endeavors, because rehabilitation is in everything and means more and more. The horizon of 2030 of the in reinforcing the application very much means that also underpinned by the balneal facilities, it is supplementary reinforcement for rehabilitation. Thank you very much. And now we can end this international session. We thank a grateful thanks to all the speakers, and we shall pass without a significant pause to the next session because we are a little bit out of time.
Cum salvezi asta? Cum salvezi? Să ies din el să salvezi.